All right, welcome back, everyone. So, welcome to the second half of the session with another very important panel discussion. But before we move to the next panel discussion, may I please give you again our housekeeping rule. So, for the one who would like to ask the question during the Q&A session or panel discussion, please put your questions in the Q&A box. All right. If you have any difficulties or technical issues, you may put in the chat box. Okay. So before we start the session, I again would like to thank our sponsor, Tokita Company, and we would like to play their company's video for 15 seconds. And just please be informed that this video has no sound, all right? So if you cannot hear, it's normal, all right? Please see the video from Tokita. Thank you very much, Tokita Seed. So may I please invite back Dr. Arvind Kapoor to help giving the introduction of this panel discussion and also introduce the speakers. Dr. Arvind, please. Thank you.
So thank you very much, May. Now again, I will share the, oops, do I have it? Oh, no. No. So this session particularly we have made to talk about the membership UPOV and the UPOV 1978 and 1991. We have selected 3 countries which are important for they are UPOV 1978, UPOV 91, and non-UPOV member. So now this discussion will help us that how these countries are operating and what is their future course, that whether they are opting for 91 and what kind of changes they are bringing in. So I will pass on to May to conduct this session and invite speakers.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Arvind. So this session, as Dr. Arvind mentioned, we have in a committee, we have put this topic and we have selected 4 countries based on the UPOV membership. So we would like to learn also from the country that they are not yet UPOV member, which are Thailand and the Philippines. And for Thailand, it will be presented by TASTA. She's Dr. Bunyanath She's currently a vice president of TASTA. She will help to give the view on behalf of TASTA on how UPOV 1991 view in Thailand and what is the barrier as of now. And next speaker is from the Philippines. Again, the Philippines right now is not yet subscribed to UPOV 1991. So we would like to hear also a view from the National State Association. So we have invited Dr. Gabriel Romero. He is Executive Director of PSIA. And we also would like to hear the view from the country that is currently a member of UPOV, but they still subscribe to a version of 1978. So we are very pleased to have Dr. Shui Yehan from division. He is a division director and under division of PVP examination, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs from China. So he will help to give a view and the current status of China right now on the how they would move from UPOV 1978 to UPOV 1991. And the last speaker today, we are pleased to have a country that's currently they subscribe to the member of UPOV 1991, which is Australia. So we are pleased to have Mr. Nick House. He is a chief of plant breeders' rights under IP Australia. So with that, I would like to first invite the first speaker, Dr. Bunyanath to give a view on about Thailand on the UPOV 1991. Dr. Bunyanath, please.
Okay, thank you very much, May. Can you please share my slides from your screen? Okay, Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of Thai Seed Trade Association or TASTA, I would like to thank APSA for the excellent collaboration that we have done together to the success and for inviting TASTA to share our view on Thailand barriers to UPOF 1991 today. What I'm going to say is that not really, I just would like to focus on the current situation of Thailand toward our ratifying UPOF 1991, and then I would walk you through the brief summary of what is going on, then the key stakeholder and what TASTA is doing and will continue to do in the future to make sure that we can ratify UPOF 1991 in the future. So May, could you please go to next slide? All right. In this one, in this slide is a summary of the current situation in Thailand towards ratifying UPOF 1991. Before I go through the process, it has to be reminded that any ratification of international treaty that Thailand has to commit ourselves to those treaties needs the approval from the parliament. So this is a constitutional law. So it is a logical approval process, and it has been working for most of the cases. But in case of the UPOF 1991, it has become a great challenge for responsible government agencies to align with the member of parliaments and the senators on the benefit for Thailand from ratifying UPOF 1991. Anyway, even though that, although that we haven't ratified UPOF 1991 yet, Thailand is implementing our own Plant Variety Protection Act or PVP Act. This act is the result of the combination between agendas from UPOF 1978 and some agendas from conventional biological diversity. So it is the mix and match. It's a kind of the combination, but as a consequence of this combination, PVP Act has not been effective to protect breeders' rights. The key reasons for the ineffectiveness are: first, breeders' right is always likely to be overruled by the definition of and the scope of the general domestic plant variety that renders the plant varieties which has been widely existed or cultivated in Thailand, no matter those variety is a result of the breeding by breeders or not, to the access and benefit sharing. And also in addition, the current PVP Act doesn't provide protection for EDV either. And since 2014, seed industry by TASTA has been working with the Department of Agriculture on revision of PVP Act according to make it align or according to the UPOF 1991. This is the part of the revision is the effort to revise the PVP Act is a part of the collaboration between TASTA and DOA under Thailand policy. However, the revised law, even though it has been completed some time ago, it has not been submitted to the cabinet so far due to the strong opposition by NGOs and the activists who are advocating for organic and conservative agriculture. But anyway, in 2019, and continue into this year as well, that game has changed, or the turning point has come, because UPOF 1991 has become a very hot topic in Thailand, as Thailand began to do an in-country consultation process for joining, for Thailand to join CPTPP, or the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. Regarding to the need to do the deep dive with the many requirements to join the CPTPP, the Federation of Thai Industry and Thai Chamber of Commerce encouraged Thailand to start negotiation with the country members although the NGOs and the activists are still strongly protesting Thailand to discuss about UPOF 1991 and the other issues under the joining the CPTPP. Anyway, last year we have seen a very strong activities from both sides, from APSA, from TASTA, and also from the NGOs. But and the Parliament has come in between to collect all the opinions from industry and from the other stakeholders as well. But the activity has not been has not come to the conclusion yet so far. And we are looking at the next year when the upcoming Biden administration in US will put another factor for Thailand to do the recalculating of our CPTPP joining. So with Biden administration, Thailand has come up to discuss again on whether we should worry too much about UPOF 1991, as the NGO has been saying all the time, or we should listen to UPOF office in Paris, and then listen to the seed industry and agricultural industry in Thailand, and then we can move ourselves on the other issue under the CPTPP, rather than just to struggle with the dramas and issues from the NGO side. Okay, but anyway, we are still monitoring what would be a new development from the Parliament and what would be the new development after Biden has become the president of the US, because the trading between Thai and US would be the key factors for Thailand to recalculate our position to join the CPTPP. It means that if we decided to join CPTPP, ratifying UPOF 1991 is the yes answer already. Okay, so next slide, please. So even though that we still have a long way to go to ratifying UPOF 1991 with limited resources, currently TASTA, can you please just go to the whole, no, not the next slide, but just go, oops, how come? Oh, something wrong. Can you go to the next one, please? Next one. Next one. God. May, can you stop the slide? And then I just, okay. Sorry, something wrong with the slide. Okay. But anyway, let me just do the verbal presentation. What I wanted to show in the slide, but it didn't show up, is that we would like to focus and then present to you that even though we have limited resources and still have a long way to go with ratifying UPOF 1991, currently TASTA has been focusing our work with the stakeholder who support negotiation with UPOF 1991 countries. And these include the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Agriculture, Federation of Thai Industry, Thai Chamber of Commerce, and university. I have to mention university because they are important for us, as we would like to send the right message on UPOF 1991 to the young generation, rather than being influenced to let them, the young generation, to be influenced by the dramas from the NGOs only. So these are the people, government agencies, and the industrial institution that we are going to work with them and continue to work with them to leverage their understanding on the benefit of UPOF 1991 to Thai agricultural industry and Thai basic economics and farmers as well. And in the last topic that I would like to share with you is that with all the challenges that we are facing and the stakeholders on the pros and cons stakeholders, TASTA will continue our role to promote UPOF 1991 acceptance in Thailand. And some key activities that I would like to share with you is that we actually, TASTA and EPSA, we are going to continue our engagement with the government agency and industrial institution for regular leveraging on the benefit of UPOF 1991 to promote Thai agricultural sectors, as I have mentioned. And the next one is that we going to work with EPSA and other agencies in Thailand, government agencies in Thailand, in order to translate UPOF 1991 into the Thai layman language for public communication. This is the thing that, as I mentioned, that we need to, in the last year, we work with the government and the key industrial institution to leverage their understanding in UPOF 1991. And we got the good feedback from them. And that's why they, those agencies and institutions, they are helping us to advocate for UPOF 1991 in Thailand. So we would like to continue the success and good example with the wider area of the public. And this time, we need to really be careful about the communication, because difficult legal language and international treaty language cannot be digested by laymen. So it is our task together with EPSA to translate UPOF 1991 for the laymen in Thailand. And last but not least, TASTA will continue to collaborate with our collaboration with excuse me, with DOA and Ministry of Commerce, as well as EPSA, our great friends, and CopLife, to provide information on your POP 1991 to public and private sectors, because we still have long way to go with the CPTPP or TPP negotiation, and UPOP 1991 is always the top on the list of the government agencies and Thailand trade representative to discuss. So it is opportunity. It can be seen as our opportunity to provide right information to those people for them to support ratifying of 1991 in Thailand. So that's all I would like to present to you today. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, I'm happy to answer your questions or share your comments. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bunyana. What you have given it just actually current situation, especially the push that Thailand may consider again the UPOF 1991 as we may got pushed by the new administration from the US. So I know that we have received few questions already to clarify on CPTPP. I think we will answer that also during the panel discussion. We have around 20 minutes after everyone gives the presentation, and then we will come back to this point. So right now, if you have any question to Dr. Bunyana about the situation in Thailand toward UPOF 1991, feel free to put in the Q&A box, all right? So next, I would like to invite Dr. Gabriel Romero. He is Executive Director of the Philippine Seed Industry Association. He will also give the view on UPOF 1991. So let us hear the update from the Philippines. Dr. Gabriel, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, May. So first, let me talk about the Philippine Seed Industry Association. We are the biggest and oldest seed association in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, we still have these formal and informal seed systems. Modern seeds are sold in the formal system, and the traditional varieties are exchanged in the informal seed system. For the major crops, the formal sector accounts from 80 to 90% of the seeds, with 70 to 90% local seed production. In rice, there's about 20% traditional and farmer seed in the market. So the importance of the seed industry was highlighted in 1992 with the issuance of the Philippine Seed Industry Development Act, followed in 1997 by the Agriculture and Fisheries Modernization Act. Then in 2002, we have this Philippine Variety Protection Act that was enacted, and this was closely patterned after UPOV 1991. However, there's a group or there's a camp that views the PVP and UPOP 1991 differently from the seed companies and government. The NGOs and academics on one hand are quite wary or outright opposed to PVP or UPOP 1991. On the other hand, the government was bullish initially, but the interest has seemingly waned lately. The opponents managed to insert the farmers' exemption in the final PVP. The main issues of the opponents with the UPOV 1991 include too much seed importation, displacement of traditional varieties, and unprofitable input-intensive farming with modern seeds. When the Philippine government sought the assessment of its PVP law, UPOV confirmed its compliance to the breeders' rights, as enumerated in UPOV 1991. However, it found that the farmers' rights in Article 43 of the PVP law to be non-compliant to UPOV 1991 because of the allowed acts of selling. UPOV 1991 only allows breeders' exemption in use, but not sale of farm-saved seeds only under subsistence farming. I'd like to show you this comparison of PVP against UPOV 1991 in terms of the breeder's rights of the protected variety. Same rights in all, as you can see, except in selling farm-saved seeds, which is covered by UPOV 1991, but not by PVP. There are encouraging developments, however, recently in the government that may revive their interest to pursue UPOV membership. A critical issue is about who the small farmer is that can avail of the farmer's exemption in the PVP. The small farmer is now defined in the proposed amended Seed Act as earning no more than $4,800 per year. Next is there's a major project of the Department of Agriculture to establish a national seed technology park with a vision to be an important seed hub in the region. And the PSA has been closely co-opted by the DA leadership in this project. We are maximizing this trust and relationship to raise the most important and pressing issues that affect the seed industry. And lastly, the PSIA continues to sit on the PVP board, and we are preparing to present the benefits of UPOV membership soon. On the income ceiling for small farmers, this is surpassed usually by rice and corn farmers that till 3 or more hectares and by vegetable farmers that use more than 1 hectare. So if UPOV 1991 is to be strictly followed, selling farm-saved seed is never allowed under any circumstances. However, considering the subsistence condition of Filipino farmers, the question is whether it may be allowed for smallhold farmers as defined. So finally, may I just give these recommendations? First one, for the Philippines to expound and clarify the profile of smallhold rice, corn, and vegetable farmers in the implementing rules and regulations of the Seed Act. Next, for UPOV to revisit the smallhold farmer context in the Philippines. And lastly, for UPOV to provide trainings on plant breeders' rights to NSTP stakeholders, the stakeholders of the National Seed Technology Park. So I end here and looking forward to more discussion later on. Thank you, May.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gabriel. It's very brief, but also informative information that you have shared, and also you give very good view, side by side comparison between the Philippines PVP law versus UPOV 1991 requirement. I think some may already have the question. I think also we can also hear the view similarly from Thailand as well when we talk about the farmers' right. As you have shared about the Philippines PVP law. So next, thank you very much, Dr. Gabriel. Please, we will come back to you again in the panel discussion. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Shui Yihan to give a view on China for the current situation, because China is currently a member of UPOF 1978. And so it would be very good to hear the view also on, for China moving forward to UPOF 1991. So with that, I would like to invite Dr. Shui Yihan to give a presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, May, and good evening, good morning, or maybe good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How do I sharing the slides? I don't know how to do it. Perhaps.
Dr. Shu, you want us to share your presentation?
Yeah,
Control your
yes.
presentation. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, hello everyone again. I would like to take this opportunity to introducing the plant variety protection development in China. Next. First one is the background. And as you know, the PVP regulations in China was promulgated in March 20th, 1997. And in 2 years later, China joined the UPOF, 39 members, conform with the 78th Act of the UPOF Convention. In China, there are two examining and approving authorities. One is MARA, with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, responsible for agricultural crops, vegetables, soft fruits, herbaceous areas, ornamentals, etc. And the other one is NAFGA, which is the forest responsible for trees, nut fruits, and other woody plants. And the current situation in 2016 revised the seed law, our seed law, have listed PVP in separate chapters. It's promoted the legal status of PVP in China. Also, the US tests was defined as the basic technical requirements for variety management and entrusting the agricultural authority at or above county level with the function of investigation of dealing with infringements. And fourthly, the penalty for the PVP infringement have enhanced, and the amount of compensation has been increased significantly. Next one, please. Because our PVP law is conform with 78 acts, which is the list, protection list will be published every 3 years. So now, MARA have published 191 genera and species. Now, those species which can be applied for protection. Next one, please. And the PVP organization MARA, that is, we have PVP office as well as the re-examining committee. Under the PVP office, we have our center, Development Center of Science and Technology, and also we had the DUS testing headquarters. And along with is the seed storage centers. And our DCST, we have a division for PVP and a division for DUS testing. up to now, we have 27 DUS testing branches and 6 testing stations. And there is the 1 hectare DUS headquarters and 27 branches and 6 stations. Sort of drafted 450 test guideline and 20 DNA fingerprinting technique test guidelines as well. That is the PVP and DUS examination in Mara. Is some premises and also the experimental equipment as well as testing personnel. PVP status in Mara, you can see the application is shooting up, was increased significantly, particularly from 2017, because as you know, we have free of charge for everything, not only for domestic but also for overseas. So this is a big benefit sharing policies across over all over the world, and perhaps this is the reason, and we are now is the top application needs in terms of annual applications around in the top list among UPOV members. And next one, please. And the breakdown by crops. The majority of the applications are the agricultural crops, second by ornamentals and vegetables. That is the phenomena for China PVP application, in particular Mara cases. And the PVP enforcement in China, they have 2 channels for enforcement. One is the administrative enforcement. The other one is judiciary channel. And we have the administrative agricultural system in central government level, as provincial level, district level, and the county. We all have the agricultural administrative department responsible for handling infringement cases. And also for the judiciary channel, we have the Supreme People's Court. Underneath, we have the, in 2019, 1st January 2019, where there is established IP court rule within the Supreme People's Court, specifically dealing with the dispute cases and for the intellectual properties and for the re-examination of the cases. And we have the, at the provincial level, we have designed the intermediate people's court, and also we have several IP courts across countries. And for the enforcement channel, we can go through the negotiation, arbitration, administrative and judicial ones. So we have more measures, nowadays, the majority of the dispute cases is handled by administrative rather than by judicial. Only 20% go to court. So that is the PVP dispute case in China. That is the PVP cooperation along 20 years. Once China joined UPOV, we have collaborated with UPOV members as well as the non-UPOV members, providing the training as well as the cooperation on technical TG test guideline drafting as well as for the regional cooperations. That is, last year is the 20th anniversary of China joining UPOV. And also we held the 12th East Asia PVP Forum and several international seminar, PVB, and meetings, and in the Beijing. So that was kind of a memorial, China, in terms of joining the UPO for 20 years. And now we talk to the future perspectives. As you may know, our PVP regulations is under amendments, and the main contents will be as follows. The big change. The first one is we are going to introducing the EDV concept related provisions into our regulations. The second one, we are going to extend the breeders' rights into the whole chain of seed sealing production activities, including propagated and harvested materials. Third one, we're going to enlarge protection list to all plant generian species. As I mentioned earlier, in Mara, we have 191 plant generian species. Now, we're going to extend to all the plant generian species gradually. Obviously, it will take time. And the fourth one is we're going to extend protection period up to 25 years for trees, and as well as for the ordinary the agricultural crops as well. And the last but not least, the further define farmers' privilege. And so that is the main changes or contents which we are going to modify our PVP regulations in order to be in line with 1991 Act of the UPOV Convention. End of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and for sharing a very good organization actually from Mara. And it's very clear when you mention about the support from the government, especially on the free of charge when they do the application, so that we can see like exponential number shoot for the application in China. So let us move to the next presenter, Mr. Nick House from Australia. So he will share also the practice from Australia on how they deal with the farmers' rights practice under the UPOV 1991. Let us hear from Mr. Nick.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about Australia's experience in moving to UPOV 91, and in particular, the Farm Save Seed and Endpoint royalties. Plant variety protection in Australia has been available through the UPOV system for over 30 years. In this presentation, I will briefly explain why Australia moved to UPOV 91 and what the outcome meant for the PBR legislation. I will take most of my time on highlighting the impact of the changes on the seed industry, focusing on the Farm Save seed provisions and the payment of royalties. Firstly, why did Australia move to UPOV 91? In 1994, a Government Senate Standing Committee report looked into and endorsed a policy framework that would allow Australia to ratify the 1991 UPOV Convention. There were three main intended outcomes from the policy: to increase investment in plant breeding by providing breeders opportunity for financial return, to increase access to the best varieties. Often these are bred overseas, and it was recognised that overseas breeders would be reluctant to release their varieties into Australia if there was not an effective plant variety protection system. and to speed technology transfer to allow access to new material for further breeding. The Plant Breeders' Rights Bill was debated in Parliament in 1994 following a consultation process. It was largely supported by industry. The proposed legislation included all of the elements needed to conform to the 1991 version of the UPOV Convention. The scope was broadened to include all plant species, the right to import and export was added, and the concept of essentially derived varieties was included. In addition, the optional exception for farmers to save seed was also included. On 10th of November 1994, the new Plant Breeders' Rights Act came into force and was consistent with Australia's obligations under UPOV 91. I should note that royalties are not mentioned in the PBR Act. What was the impact on the number of PBR applications for new seed crop varieties in Australia? In terms of area under cultivation, production and value, wheat is Australia's #1 agricultural crop. Since at least the 1940s, wheat production in Australia has increased dramatically. Other major crops in Australia include barley, sorghum, oats and canola. In the nearly 7 years prior to the PBR Act, around 100 applications were received for new agricultural varieties, averaging around 16 applications per year. Since 1994, there have been around 1,500 or more applications, averaging 62 applications per year. Some of the dramatic increase could be attributed to industry becoming more aware of plant variety protection. However, much can also be attributed to changes and developments that encouraged further investment in plant breeding. Since the PBR Act was introduced in 1994, there has been a significant move from public to private breeding in many sectors of the plant industry. There has also been a corresponding greater private investment in plant breeding. However, the impact was not immediate. Prior to the year 2000, 95% of wheat breeding was in the public sector. By 2014, 100% of breeding was in the private sector. Whilst the changes to the legislation in 1994 may have been slow to be realised, other events around the year 2000 appear to have significantly influenced the move to private breeding efforts, at least in the seed industry. After the commencement of the PBR Act, there was uncertainty in the industry around the farmer's privilege or exemption to save seed as allowed under the new Act. The Farm Save Seed provisions meant farmers could save seed, but the breeder's right could also extend to harvested material if they had not had reasonable opportunity to exercise their right. The boundaries around these seemingly conflicting provisions was addressed around the year 2000 with court cases that clarified a breeder's reasonable opportunity to exercise their right and their ability to impose a royalty payment at a different point in the production chain, i.e. on the harvested material or products of the harvested material. The court determined 3 important principles. Exhaustion of PBR by sale of initial seed does not extend to cover the sale of subsequent generations of crops, assuming they are grown from farm saved seed. The harvest from farm saved seed, except for further farm saved seed, is to be treated as if it were propagating material and therefore subject to PBR. The reasonable opportunity to impose a production levy or endpoint royalty is intended to be exercised on propagating material at the time of its acquisition. This last point is important as it essentially means that the breeder should exercise their right at the first point of sale of the propagating material. How does the breeder exercise their rights? In Australia, for the major seed crops, a system of endpoint royalties called EPRs is often used. So what are EPRs? An EPR is an industry-driven royalty payment system, usually based on tons of grain produced. It is driven by a collaborative effort of industry. The government is not involved. The PBR Act does not prevent such a system from operating, and there is no mention of royalties in the PBR legislation. EPR is established by contract at the first point of sale. Why do endpoint royalties work in Australia? They rely on the narrow points of the supply chain. There are more than 35,000 growers in Australia, but the number of major crop types grown is small. There is a collaborative approach in the industry. Royalty collection points are usually the limited number of bulk grain handlers. Breeders share the risk with farmers. If the farmer's crop fails or is poor, then the breeder royalties are reduced. Breeders also reinvest into further new and improved varieties. As mentioned, court cases have clarified the ability for breeders to impose an endpoint royalty payment. To see how EPRs work, let's look first at the traditional mechanism of a seed royalty. Whilst the breeder has an opportunity to exercise their rights on the initial sale of the seed, there is very little opportunity in subsequent crops produced from the farm saved seed. There is also the risk that if the breeder charges a seed royalty that is too high, the farmer will choose lower cost public domain varieties, as the potential benefits of the new variety may not be sufficient to justify the risk of crop failure, for example, due to drought. With an EPR, the breeder may still sell the seed to the farmer and could even include a small seed royalty. However, it is common for the breeder to not sell the seed, but to include it as part of a license agreement. When the breeder supplies the initial seed, they also require the purchaser to enter into a contract that sets extra conditions and mandatory reporting requirements regarding the use of that seed. When the crop is harvested and delivered to the grain handler, the royalty is paid based on the tonnage delivered. This is the basis of the EPR system in Australia. It works well as there are relatively few grain handlers, so the collection points are easy to manage. Whether EPRs would work in another country is very difficult to answer. It very much depends on the circumstances in that country. It is not only the legislation, it is also the types of crops, the number of farmers, potential collection points for royalties, a supportive industry, and many other factors. EPRs are effective in Australia as they rely on relatively few collection points in the supply chain and a collaborative industry. Australia's EPR system is just one example of how it is possible for breeders and growers to work together within contractual arrangements and within UPOV obligations for mutual benefit. I would like to finish off with an example from Canada. Canada has a seed industry in many ways similar to Australia and have been looking at introducing a similar endpoint royalty system. In 2015, Canada amended its PBR Act to conform to UPOV 91. At that time, the legislation was amended. Authority was created to place conditions on the farmer's privilege through possible future regulatory amendments. These regulations, if implemented, would require a producer to pay a royalty on either farm-saved seed or harvested grain in the form of an endpoint royalty. In 2018-19, the Canadian government conducted consultations with the stakeholder community on the two possible models. The consultations were controversial and no clear consensus emerged on a preferred model. The Canadian private seed industry has introduced a farm-saved seed royalty collection pilot project on a handful of new varieties entering the marketplace. The objective of this pilot project is to increase farmers' familiarity with this means of royalty collection. The Canadian government has paused the consultations and it will not likely resume the initiative in the short term. So it's not to say that Canada will not introduce some form of endpoint royalties in the future, only that it is not an easy path and there are many obstacles to overcome. Australia's path was also not easy in the beginning, and it took many years to establish an effective system of royalty collection. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think due to the time difference, we cannot have Mr. Nick be with us during the panel discussion, but what he has given during the in his presentation is so clear on the benefits of setting a clear plant breeders' rights scheme under UPOF 1991. And I think also that would be a very good example also for other countries, especially the non-UPOF countries. So may I please ask Dr. Bunyana, Dr. Gabriel, and Dr. Shui to turn on your camera, please. Okay, so I think first I will just go through the question we have received through Q&A box. Okay, some question we have already answered, but we just would like to recap here for all the attendees to understand the same. So first question actually we received was related to CPTPP because Dr. Bunyana did highlighted the situation in Thailand that it would tie with the CPTPP, right? So could you please just give a very brief why in Thailand we put the status of UPOF 1991 under CPTPP discussion with the government?
Okay, thank you for this question. CPTPP is the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is a trade agreement that originated by President Obama, and then many countries has already ratified, agreed and joined the CPTPP already. In this region, so we have to mention like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Canada, Mexico, Japan as well. These are the example of 12 countries that already
a member of UPOF 1991
joined the CPTPP. Yes, and under the CPTPP, to join the CPTPP, there are so many requirements and compulsory requirements for each country to agree. And UPOF 1991 is one of the compulsory agreement that the country who would like to join CPTPP has to ratify. So that's why in case of Thailand, to drive for ratifying UPOF 1991 alone, it will be very, very difficult according to the current situation from the NGOs and all the farmers protests. But through the CPTPP, we see more chance or more opportunity for Thailand to join UPOF 1991.
Thank you very much. But I believe that also for the position of TASTA, I have seen that TASTA also put a clear position that though regardless of CPTPP, Thailand still would like to TASTA or seed industry still would like to put Thailand the agenda on the UPOF 1991, right?
Correct. It is our agenda, and it is the one of the key objectives under the Seed Hub Thailand as well. That TASTA has made it clear with Ministry of Agriculture and Department of Agriculture that we need to amend or revise our PVP Act. Otherwise, seed industry cannot go further from now. And we will lose the opportunity to at least 10% or 15% growth annually. So that's why we have been doing the work with the DLA. But CPTPP is just a game changing for our effort to drive for ratifying UPOV 1991 because we have more stakeholders to support us for the benefit and advantage for the CPTPP. So if they can see the advantage from those other requirements, and then we can answer the questions that public has on the on UPOV 1991, it means that we can use the CPTPP as the accelerator for us to ratify UPOV 1991.
Thank you very much. That's clear. So next, I would like to move to Dr. Gabriel. Similar view. The view would be similar also in terms of the support required for the government, right? Similar to Thailand. But for Philippines, I see that actually when you show the comparison of the Philippines PVP law versus the UPOV 1981, only one point that do not yet comply with UPOV 1991, which is the farmers' right on farm safe seed actually. So how do you view this, Dr. Gabriel, in terms of the support? How this would be proceed with the government to make sure that further it would comply with UPOV 1991?
Well, the Department of Agriculture officials do not see that changing. There's no effort from government side to even change that provision because they consider that, especially they think that no congressman will ever sponsor an amendment that will take away the farmers exemption, especially that part of farmers being able to sell farm safe seeds. That's why, well, our recommendation is for UPOV to revisit that exemption. But I see in the chat box from Francois
Yes.
that in fact there's already an agreement about the volume of seeds that is not allowed, and I think that is way above what is normally produced by smallhold farmers who even venture into seed production or seed sale here in the Philippines. Very few farmers do that and would be able to reach that volume. So I think it will just take more interaction, a better dialogue between the two sides to clarify the farmers exemption from the point of view of UPOB and from the point of view of PVP. So I'm quite optimistic with that perspective, or the new perspective of UPOB, and now the amendment on the definition of smallhold farmers in the Philippines. Although I must tell you that the amendment is still ongoing. It has been already endorsed. The amended SEED Act is already endorsed. There's already a bill filed in Congress. There's already an initial meeting, and no question was asked around that definition. So it looks like it's just a matter of time when the Congress resumes that we can see approval of the amended SEED Act.
All right, thank you very much. So I see Francois raised his hand as he is one of the committee also. I can allow Francois to give a brief view on this. I think that he would like to clarify his point that he has shared in the chat box.
Thank you,
and then we
May.
have one more question for Dr. Chiu. Yeah, please, Francois.
Thank you, May, and thanks to all the speakers. Just a few words on what was said by Mr. Romero. I really think there is no need to amend UPOV. I insist on that. On farm safe seed provision, it's depending of countries, and UPOV is very flexible. You know, they accepted the Vietnamese legislation with a very large exemption for farm safe seeds with no money back. So the main question for me is how much you want to fund your breeders. You know, in Europe, as you said, I said the level of smallholder farmers in 90 ton. So before 90 ton, you are considered as a smallholder farmer. In France, it's not a problem because a big majority of farmers, they are making more than 90 tons. In Poland, it's a big problem because you have a majority of farmers under 90 tons. At the end of the day, breeders in France, they have many money from farm safe seeds of their varieties. In Poland, they have not. And so in Poland, you have less and less breeders. And in France, you continue to have a lot of breeders in wheat. So for me, it's the main difference. And last figure, in France for wheat, we collect today 30 million euros from certified seeds, and we collect 20 million euros from farm safe seeds. So if you cut farm safe seed collection for breeding, you have 40% less of funding for breeding activities.
Thank you very much, Francois. I think that's very good example, and I see that this is an action that our standing committee on IPR and biodiversity can really come to give a support to Thailand and also the Philippines on this, so that we are clear on how this should be set in the country. So I think we have time for only one last question, and we have a question for Dr. Shui. So actually, UPOF 1981 set a protection period for 20 years, but we see in the presentation that in China you set for 25 years. What is the reason for that, and what kind of feedback or the benefit that you have seen based on the protection period that you have extended from 20 years to 25 years?
Thank you. Yes, I think it's a good question. I have to clarify, and this is not a final version, because this revision is still under re-examination under the Ministry of Justice. So, and they have a view, and that's the UDI plans will be much higher, more periods than they have the previous is 25 and 30. Okay, and for us, we think to make things much more simplified rather than complicated. Although the UPOF, what they said, the UPOF 91 for the agricultural crops is 20 years at least protection to 20 years, and for others is at least for 25 years. So some countries they can sort of protect it even longer, up to 30, or I even see some countries protect certain species for 35 years. Mm-hmm. So depending on the country's situations and also the crop species to species, and also in China's situation nowadays we have under 78 Act for the agricultural crops is 15 years period for protection.
Yes.
So that the varieties, and particularly for the import line, is still alive, a huge market. So, but they cannot have further protection. That is the problems, and the breeders that complain to us. They say, why not extend for further 5 or 10 years?
Wow.
So, well, that is not for all, but for a certain species or varieties, which is the breeders are asking for more protection. So that is bizarre. Well, you cannot imagine, how the variety is more popular in the market. We have several varieties for maize or corn, if you like. They have exceed 15 years in the market, but still they are ranking still in the top one in maize production plantation. So it's amazing. So that means but again, they ask for more protection in the period, but we cannot do that because the law, the PVP regulation didn't allow us to do so. So therefore we say, oh, maybe we can have have more sort of room for them, for the higher potential good varieties to enjoy the more longer period for protection. But for the others, if you are not going to, so you just ignore your varieties or whatever, that will be easier for them as well. So we have to make a balance. But as I said earlier, this is not a final version. So wait and decide what is the final looks like. Thank you.
That's very good update, and we are looking forward to receiving more update actually on the final position from China. But overall, I think personally, I think this is very attractive program for breeders in China if you consider this and it's become a final version. So we are coming to the session closing. So I would like to first thank all the panelists and to give very good current information, current situation from their country. So first, I would like to thank Dr. Bunyana to give a very good position of Thailand, and we know that there are so many things that we need to work together, and there's support also always from APSA that we are willing to give to our National Seed Association. That's same for the Philippines, very clear, and we do see clearly also based on the comment from Frangsur that there are so many, more works that we can do together to support the Philippine Seed Industry Association to put this to the government, especially on the farm safe seed, right? So I would like to thank Dr. Gabriel, Executive Director of PSIA, to giving us very clear view on this, and also how we know more, how can we collaborate better on this. And next, Dr. Shui, thank you very much for sharing also, an updated on the provision, though it's not yet final, but it's giving a good information to our audience on how China is setting the PVP framework currently. And last but not least, Mr. Nick House, he cannot be at, due to the time difference, he cannot be available now, but what he gave us in the presentation is very clear on the benefits. And I think that his presentation is very helpful for the country, to see that example and to take some talking points also to the government. So with that, I also would like to thank Dr. Arvind Kapoor, the chair of the Standing Committee on IPR and Biodiversity. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Casper. He's a co-chair of Standing Committee on IPR and Biodiversity to give a closing remark. Casper, please.
Good day to everyone. Thank you. And I'm not going to repeat all the thanks already given by May, but it's also, I think, on behalf of the full committee organizing this session. I think when we as committee had to think out a theme for this meeting, we thought it useful to try to highlight the path in some key countries towards UPOV 91. And I think that looking back at the presentations, my conclusion is it is moving. It is moving. In all three countries, it's moving. It's moving on different paths. I think what I took out of the session is to see Thailand moving also under the well, kind of pressure induced by the negotiations on CPTPP, which definitely, as I understood, may help. But still, I think the presentation was very clear that the hurdles are significant to be overcome. In the Philippines, I think it was very clear from the presentation that the discussion, and that is also a theme, of course, in all countries, is centered on the smallholders definition. And I was intrigued by the work that you dug into that really definition work. China is moving on a broader path, as Dr. Q explained, with the 5 items, and we're all are very happy to see the progress made and the focus on EDV and also on farm safe seed. And also that is a long road. I mean, you did not hide that, but still it is moving, and I think that is essential because that's of course leading to somewhere. If it's not for tomorrow, it's for maybe next week or next month or next year. What also was interesting, I think, for quite a few viewers was also Dr. Q's your clarification of the 2 enforcement channels which and also to see that 80% of the cases, infringement cases, are now handled by the ministry. It all culminated in Australia, and we had put that with of course an idea to ask Australia as a showcase on to bring out that even once you have adopted UPOV 91, you're not there. I mean, you're not at the final stage. As Nick clearly pointed out, explained us, was there's still a lot of work to do, and it was I think significant to see his elaboration on where the Australian industry, how they realized this endpoint royalty system. And I think it was very, very good and thoughtful of Nick also to point towards the end of his presentation, to point out when he brought up the comparison with Canada, which, as he said, is an industry which looks a little bit in the same environment as Australia, where the progress on after the adhesion of UPOV 91, where the industry and the government are still looking for a way to capture, in fact, the potential fruits of the adhesion of 91. In short, I think it was clearly brought forward in the various countries. Things are moving in different speeds. Yes, there's a lot of political influences involved, obviously, which have to be overcome. I think also it was made clear that APSA is ready to stand next to the seed associations and also governments to help and consult on these various debates towards the UPOV 91 adhesion. Thank you. I think that's it, May.
Thank you very much, Casper, for a very clear summary of this panel discussion. So we are closing this session, and I would like to promote a virtual networking session that we will start in the next, I think in the next 20 minutes. So everyone should already receive the link and also the password. We will have one table that still open for everyone to discuss about the PVP, and our committee, some of our committees will be standing by there at the table to take the feedbacks and also answer some questions. Thank you very much, and we hope that you have very good information received from our 2 sessions from digital sequencing information and also from UPOF 1991. Thank you very much, and we meet you at the virtual networking lounge. Have a nice evening. Thank you.